everybody, and welcome back to Novel Noms. This week we're going to make something yummy and delicious, of course, but before I get to that, I want to tell you about something special that's going to happen this weekend. Just tomorrow, the 19th, I'm going to be doing a live Novel Noms, and I'm going to be answering your questions and about Thanksgiving or about whatever you want to ask me about, as long as it's, you know, not weird. I'm going to be baking something yummy, like Thanksgiving-y, so you can kind of watch me cook and ask me questions, and if you have any specific questions about how to make your Thanksgiving dinner, we'll get together and we'll chitty chat. So tomorrow at 11 o'clock Pacific time, 11 a.m. Pacific time, we're going to have a live Novel Noms chat, baking, cooking, answering event.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes Novel Noms.
This week, we're doing something a little special because I don't know if you knew this, but November is National Novel Writing Month. It's called Nanowrimo. Basically what it is they give people a challenge every year to write 50,000 words of a novel, and there's a website where people will actually let you read some of their work and give them some inspiration. It's kind of cool. And I will admit that I did a whole maybe 3.5 days of it and then gave up. But I wanted to do something for NaNoWriMo because I think it's such a great thing to do, because the whole point of it is to turn off your internal editor and just kind of throw it out there. And that's kind of what this meal is today. It's something that, you know, what do I have in the pantry? What can I throw together and enjoy it, and that will fill me up. And, you know, writing is such a great exercise to kind of get out your ideas and express yourself and kind of turn off the little devil on your shoulder that's telling you it's not good enough. Because it is, just because you're expressing yourself. So, NaNoWriMo, check it out. And with NaNoWriMo, we're going to make this spicy sweet potato like harvest chili. OMG. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create just our little base of flavor, and there's no better way to do that than a bacon. This is a hickory smoked bacon. It's a little bit more expensive, it's a better quality, but you could use your regular bacon, you could use prosciutto, you could use a ham if you want. And if you want to make this just completely vegetarian, just leave this part out because you'll have the other flavors. This just kind of adds that extra little deeper undertone. And I'm going to throw this into one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, and this is a Dutch oven. It's basically just a big iron, like cast iron pot that has a porcelain coating on it. These things are great because not only can you use them on the cooktop, but you can put them in the oven, which is what we're going to do. If you don't have a Dutch oven, you could start this in a pan and then transfer this to your slow cooker. That would be delicious. The thing about like NaNoWriMo, they give you like the quota that you should try and hit every day. Like you should try and write 2,000 words a day or something like that. That's a lot. And when you get into it, like you don't want to get up. And again, I only did it for 3 days, but when I did it for 3 days, I didn't want to stop writing, which is really cool. So it's nice to have something like this on hand when you have a big project, or maybe you're making your Christmas presents this year and you just need something that's easy and filling and delicious in your refrigerator to heat up for lunches or dinners. This is such a great thing. And you can substitute all different stuff for this. Alright, so we're just heating up this bacon, trying to get some of that fat rendered off of it. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to cut up just a half of a white onion. Okay, so once some of the fat starts to coat the bottom of your pan and give you some nice bubbly goodness on the bottom, I'm going to add in a half of a white onion and just a few stalks of celery kind of diced up, and get that working around. It's going to smell fantastic with it. And I want to cook this until the onions and the celery are kind of translucent and have some color on them. I'm also going to add a pinch of some sea salt, give it a little bit of flavor. Not too much because that bacon has its own salt in it. And I'm going to set my oven to about 350. When you're using a Dutch oven, you usually don't cook it at a high temperature for a short period of time. It's usually something that slow cooks and gets delicious. So I'm going to put that at about 350 because it's going to cook for about 2 hours. All right, while that's cooking, I'm going to get our sweet potatoes ready. The sweet potatoes, you don't have to worry if they're necessarily all the same size or if they look pretty, because these are going to essentially like melt into this chili and it's going to make it creamy. This is how you could make sweet potato fries. Just don't, you know, dice them. Put those in some oil and have deliciousness. Okay, so I've got all my sweet potatoes ready, and then the last thing I need ready is my yellow squash. You could use zucchini. This is something, again, you could just toss in whatever comes to you. This is something I had in the fridge that I need to use up. I'm just going to dice it up. It's going to absorb all this flavor. The great thing about squash is it's like a sponge. It's really just going to absorb everything you put in this. All those seasonings. And give you some extra veg. Okay? So we've got some nice brown on the bacon. And see all that brown on the bottom? Don't freak out, because this porcelain, so it's not going to burn, but we're going to get all that up with some goodness. So I like kind of interesting beers, and I pick up every year, I always get the pumpkin ale. And you can get this from different stores, like your specialty stores, but I'm sure you could find some pumpkin type ale somewhere. But you could use regular beer, not pumpkin. You could use stock if you want to use stock, any kind of stock, but I'm going to use pumpkin ale. Whole thing into the bottom. And then what you want to do is move it around, because all that brown stuff, remember, that was on the bottom, that is pure flavor. That's bacon, that's onion. Okay, we're going to just get all of it up. You can kind of see it when I move it around. Let that come up to a simmer. Now the thing about using any kind of alcohol, like we could have used white wine or whatever, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to use that because I'm going to serve this to my kids or my family. The alcohol does cook out, so you don't want to put the alcohol in like at the end, because then it's not going to cook out enough. That's why we hit that hot pan with the beer first, because it makes that alcohol start to cook out quickly. Now, I've got white kidney beans. I've got 2 cans. You could use any kind of beans you like. Now, I know a lot of people prefer dried beans and like soak them overnight, but again, something that you just want to throw together. We're just putting it out there. We don't really have time to soak some beans, and I actually prefer the canned beans, I know. But I'm just going to put 2 cans of white kidney beans. You could use red kidney beans, pinto beans, whatever kind of beans you have. I'm also going to add in all of those vegetables that we chopped up, the squash and the sweet potatoes. Okay, we're going to stir that up. Some cumin. Probably about a teaspoon or so of cumin, which is a nice smoky, it's not spicy. I'm going to add in some thyme, of some really good quality garlic powder, just a little bit. Some cinnamon, just a smidgen. It's going to just really bring out that warm, wonderful quality of the sweet potatoes. Sea salt, not that much. What is that, about a tablespoon? And the last thing is some red chili flakes. You don't want any heat in there, don't add these in there. That's going to add a nice little level of spice to it, a little heat. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to add is some pork shoulder. You could add chicken, you could add beef, you could add whatever kind of, I think the pork has a nice kind of flavor play with the cinnamon and the sweet potatoes. It kind of adds a really cool little flavor, and, you know, more pork. We had bacon already. But if you don't want to do meat, like I said, you could do this completely vegetarian. I'm just going to put whole big chunks in there, because once it cooks, it's going to break apart. And I'm going to have shredded pork. Again, this is just a beautiful, hearty stew. I'm going to get it all coated in the beer and the spices. And the last thing I'm going to add in there is I actually cut that pork off of a bone. I'm going to put the whole bone in there too, because the bone has a whole level of flavor. And we're just going to take that out once everything cooks off. And it doesn't look like there's enough, you know, they say, oh, well, there's not a lot of liquid in there, or it's only kind of coming up to the edges. That's okay, because the meat's going to render off some liquid, some stock. The vegetables are going to, when vegetables cook, they cook off water. So we're just going to let this sucker cook Oh, it already smells so good. You could put apples in here. Lots of yumminess. And then all I'm going to do is cover this, my big heavy cast iron pot, and put it in my oven. Put it right in the oven for about 2 hours. And if I check it at 2 hours and I still want it to kind of, the meat to break apart a little more and all that, you know, you can just put it in for a little bit longer. But like I said, this is a great thing to put on hand when you're trying to do anything, whether you're doing Nanowrimo and trying to write an entire novel in a month, or you're trying to like get all your Christmas shopping done and you just want to go home and collapse and eat something that's delicious. This is the perfect, wonderful, like just heartwarming, stomach-filling, yummy goodness. Okay, so I'll see you back in about 2 hours when this is ready to eat. It's time! Obviously be careful because the entire thing is hot, including the lid, including the little nubby thing on top to lift off, but let's look at it. Ooh, doggy. This smells and looks amazing. And the sweet potatoes have kind of broken down and made this creamy texture. The beans have broken down. That big giant pork bone that we put in there, look at this. It's almost completely cleaned off. All I'm going to do is just use my little grabber to clean off all the meat. It's clean as a whistle. Look at that. I'm going to throw that away. And now all I need to do is run my spoon through it, and it's going to break up that meat and shred it. You can leave it in big chunks if you want. This would be a great thing to make for the holidays before you go out like caroling. Do people carol still? I don't even know. Probably not. Let's try it. Now the book that the book I wrote for 3 days, but my novel that I wrote, it was about a woman that quits her corporate job to cook for a living. So, big shocker. But it was fun. Like I said, it's a fun experiment to just write and not edit it and just let it all kind of fly out. It's kind of fun. Alrighty. I can't even describe to you. You can smell a little of that beer flavor, but because it's cooked out, it's just enhanced by the pork and the bacon and the potatoes and the celery and all of that deliciousness. Let's give it a try. The pork is so tender. It is like melt in your mouth good, and it's so hearty. And it's, you know, such a nice change of pace from like the tomato-based chilies. So good. And you just got that tiny, tiny little hint of cinnamon. It's not a heavy flavor. It's perfectly spiced. Doesn't even need any extra salt and pepper. This is a masterpiece. Unlike my novel. Make this sweet potato chili. Do it. Go write a novel. If you didn't do it this year, tell me all about it. But if you didn't do it this year, try it next year. Go check out. I'll put a website down below. I'm also going to put a website down below so you can check out maybe if you want to pick up your own little Dutch oven. These are the best thing ever in the whole wide world. I'm going to eat my chili. I will see you tomorrow in our live novel noms, where we're going to answer your Thanksgiving questions and bake some yummy, yummy, yumminess for your Thanksgiving dinner. I'll see you next time on Novel Noms.